Hi, my name's Will. Welcome to the Distorted Transmission for this week. I'm talking to a band from Wellington called Sidewinder. How are you guys?
Good, mate. Thanks.
Good, man. Cheers.
Could you introduce yourselves, please? Let's start with Tom, I guess.
I'm Tom, rhythm guitarist from Sidewinder. One of the early founding members as well. Yeah, that's me.
Okay, Sean?
I'm Sean. I'm the bass player with the band. I was probably the last person to join before some of the recent lineup changes. Joined the band about a year ago, and we've sort of been full on ever since.
Cool. And who's missing today?
Missing today is the other guitar player, and that is Ben Sargent. Our lead singer, Jason Curtis, and drummer, that is Grant Lister.
All right, cool. So could you give me a brief history of the band? Maybe Tom, could you give me a brief history? Since you're one of the founding members.
Me and Ben used to jam a bit. We used to live together, and one day we just sort of started playing music and taking it to a bit of a different level and playing. We started playing with our old drummer Corey, and then Ben chucked an ad up on a website for a singer one day, and within an hour we had Jason respond to us, and he chucked through a recording of Jason singing over one of the songs that we'd written. And at that point, both me and Ben were sort of like, this has gone from jamming to potentially something a little bit more special than that.
Cool.
And not too long down the line, we ended up getting Sean along for as our bassist, and he just sort of pushed us forward. And before we knew it, we were all playing live gigs and in the studio and releasing some music.
You just got a new drummer recently, didn't you, in August? Is that right?
Yeah, that's about right. I think Corey had to drop out due to commitment issues and stuff with the band. And not too long after, we were lucky enough to get Grant in, one of Sean's old bandmates from his Holt days.
And everything's gelling well?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's gelling well. We had the misfortune that Grant joined the band like only a few weeks before the more recent lockdown. So we've had very little time to actually pull everything together. But he's been working like 40 bastards, and the rest of us have been working like 40 bastards to get it all sorted. And it's actually coming together very, very well, very, very quickly. It always seems to be the way with this band. If there's one thing about Sidewinder that can be said, is that we do get things done very, very fast. We move quite quick. So we're probably more like the missile, the Sidewinder, than the snake sometimes.
The good thing is that you have quite a bit of recorded material already, so it's possible to sort of practice to that at home. You don't necessarily need to rely on band practices only to get up to speed. Cool. Well, speaking of the recorded music you've got 3 singles. You've got Mississippi Fire, Walk of Ishi, and Sirens. I think Sirens is probably my favourite. It kind of reminds me of Soundgarden, The Cult, and perhaps Corrosion of Conformity, the kind of bands that I was listening to back in the early 90s, I suppose. Would you say these bands are in the pool of your influences?
I'm personally definitely a fan of all of the above. And I know that Jason, one of his big idols is definitely Chris Cornell, so that would definitely shine through quite heavily in the music.
Of those 3 tracks, I quite like Sirens, yeah. But do you guys have a favourite? I think Sean was saying that, was it Mississippi Fire was a bit of a band favourite, is that right?
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, I think none of our songs, I mean, we've got 3 singles out already, and the next one that's going to be coming out, which is Red Moon. Again, if you look at that next to the other songs, you'll notice that none of them really sound anything like each other at all. There's quite a big difference between the songs. And I think we're a band that hasn't really tried to sound like anything in particular. So, I mean, there are influences that we all have probably in common, but there's a lot of influences that we have that are quite different. I mean, definitely Soundgarden, I think for me would be one of them. The other 2 bands that you mentioned, not so much, but was more sort of some of the bands that were sort of the influences of Soundgarden and Alice in Chains and people like that. People like King's X is a big influence of mine.
Okay.
And going back to things like The Who is probably my biggest influence, to be honest. Yeah, I think we all like different songs that we do for different reasons. I don't think anybody has any songs in the band's repertoire at the moment that they think, no, they sort of have to hold their nose when they're playing it. That's because the way we do things, I guess, is that we sort of have to agree on everything.
The fact that these three singles sound quite different is probably because the band's still quite young, like you're about a year old, and perhaps over time, maybe next couple of years, you'll kind of settle on a particular formula, and you'll sort of go in one direction or the other. Or would you disagree, and you'd say that going forwards you'd like to keep that kind of diverse sound going?
I'd personally like to keep the dynamics continuing on, to be fair, but it does seem like we do have a bit more of a formula now that we've written a fair few songs together as a band.
I think with bands there's two ways you can do it. There are bands that have a recognizable sound, like you hear that band, you know it's that band, like Queen or Led Zeppelin. I mean, a lot of their songs were completely different, but it was still recognizably those bands. Whereas there are other bands that, to be honest, they kind of do one thing really, really well. You know, Status Quo, AC/DC. Well, you pretty much know what you're going to get. But even you're probably right. They probably had a fair bit of diversity in their earlier days, but that was what made them big. You know, so I think it's really hard to predict what a band's going to do in the future. We aren't sort of deciding ahead of time and aiming for something. We're just sort of seeing how we go.
Speaking of plans moving ahead, I believe you've got a bunch of music coming out later on this year or earlier next year.
Yeah, we do have the fourth single coming out soon, which will be Red Moon. We've got a full album that we're in the process of making, and that will be released early in the new year, probably about February, March, because obviously the recording schedule's been sort of put back a bit because of the lockdown. And we'll be putting another single out at the same time just to sort of push it. Along with that, we'll be touring, playing live. We've got a bunch of gigs booked up as we speak in Wellington and Tauranga, Christchurch, Napier, quite a few places. And we'll just be hitting the road and, wearing grooves in the State Highway 1 up and down the country as well.
So the music that you're going to release next year and the singles that you're currently releasing or have released, were they all recorded in the same place? Could you tell me about the sort of the recording side of it?
We've been to the same place every time we've jumped into the studio. So we've been for 2 lots of 3-day sessions with James Woods in the surgery studio in Newtown in Wellington. And we've got another 3 days locked in next weekend, I think it is, from the 8th through to the 10th, something like that.
The thing that you're going to release next year, is it an album or is it an EP or?
It's an album. Yeah.
How many tracks are you aiming for?
It'll be around about 10. It all comes down to how well we manage to get things recorded. I will have to make one small correction for Tom, though. It's James Goldsmith, not James Woods.
Right. Yeah. No, that's
James Woods is the bass player of Beast Wars. He's a mate of ours.
They're kind of related.
Yeah, they're kind of related. Yeah. They spent. Don't tell Woodsy that.
So the 10 tracks that are going to be on the album, will they include these singles as well? Are these? Is it?
Yeah.
So you're basically you're about to release a 4th single off it, and there'll be 6 others that are yet to be heard. Okay. There isn't all that much more to talk about. We've kind of covered everything. So is there anything else you'd like to add at the end?
Definitely thanking the fans for all their support and stuff. That's big on the agenda for sure. And definitely put a thanks out to James, especially when I fuck up his name.
Cool. Sean?
I speak for everybody in the band when it's just really grateful for how much support we've had from everybody so quickly. Right from the first gig, we had a whole bunch of people turning up to see us play and going nuts, and it's just gone more and more and more. I mean, we did a couple of gigs just this weekend past, including one at Lovelands in Pororua, and it was just mental. And that was satisfying because it's our first time back on stage, obviously after lockdown, with Grant, very little time to prepare, really. And so people just been great, and I guess we're all very grateful for that support. And for those around us, and we're looking forward to sharing more and more of what we come up with the people out there as we move ahead.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks very much for chatting with me tonight, and best of luck with everything. Best of luck with the album, and best of luck with getting James's name right next time you meet him. And yeah, I'll speak to you later. Thanks very much, and thanks for watching.